Have you ever read Genesis 6 and wondered who the sons of God really were? Were they angels? Were they the line of Seth? And how did their actions bring about the flood that wiped out almost all life on earth? In today's lesson, we're going to piece together this mystery, from the creation of man to the fall of the angels to what the Bible really says about the Nephilim. By the end, you'll see not just what happened, but why it matters for us today. After Adam and Eve left Eden, two family lines began to grow. The line of Cain, marked by rebellion and violence. The line of Seth, marked by worship and calling on God's name. Genesis 4, verse 26. This verse marks the birth of people who sought the Lord, the first covenant family line. But soon, that line would face both earthly and spiritual corruption. Genesis 6, verses 1-2 says, "The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves whomever they chose." Who were these sons of God? There are two main views, the Sethite view and the fallen angel view. The Sethite view. The godly descendants of Seth began marrying the ungodly daughters of Cain. The result was moral compromise, the godly blending with the godless. The fallen angel view. Spiritual beings from God's heavenly court abandoned their proper domain and entered the human world. They took temporary physical form, driven by lust and rebellion. Their union produced hybrid offspring, the Nephilim, mighty men of old whose violence filled the earth. Jude 1 verse 6 confirms this rebellion. The angels who did not keep their own domain but left their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains under darkness. Both readings carry the same truth. When those who belong to God cross his boundaries, corruption follows. Heaven itself is perfect. No evil originates there. But the angels God created were given free will, just like humans. That means they could choose to remain faithful or choose rebellion. Before the Genesis 6 incident, some angels had already rebelled with Lucifer, Isaiah 14, Revelation 12. So rebellion among angels was possible, not because heaven is corrupt, but because even in perfection, free creatures can disobey. Jude 1:6 says they did not keep their own domain, but left their proper dwelling. That proper dwelling was the heavenly realm, pure and uncorrupted. When they left it, they entered the physical world, already tainted by sin after Adam and Eve's fall. In that human environment, they encountered physical desire. They saw the daughters of men and lusted after them. Genesis 6, verse 2. By leaving heaven, they exposed themselves to temptation. They went from God's presence, where no sin can stand, into a world ruled by corruption, and they were consumed by it. As pure spirits, angels don't experience bodily cravings like hunger or lust, but when they chose to manifest physical bodies, as Genesis 6 implies, they opened themselves to those impulses. That's why their sin was so severe. They crossed the boundary between spirit and flesh. They didn't just observe humanity, they immersed themselves in human weakness. They left a realm of perfection and entered a world where sin had a foothold, and in doing so, they allowed temptation to master them. Because the earth was filled with violence and corruption, God sent the flood to cleanse it. Every living creature that breathed air perished, including the Nephilim, whose giant strength couldn't save them. Genesis 7 verse 23 says, "Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. Only Noah and those with him in the ark survived." The flood erased the hybrid corruption. The fallen angels were imprisoned in darkness. 2 Peter 2 verse 4. The earth was reset, and God started again with Noah's righteous family. Numbers 13:33 and Deuteronomy 3:11 mention later giants, the Anakim, the Rephaim, and King Og of Bashan, whose size reminded Israel of the ancient Nephilim. They served as living symbols of the same rebellion that once filled the earth. The message stayed the same. Whenever humanity mixes light with darkness, destruction follows. The deeper truth of Genesis 6 is that rebellion begins when we leave our proper place. just like the angels who left heaven, and the people who left their devotion to God. Temptation always begins when we step outside the boundaries God set for our good. But God's justice is never the end of the story. His mercy always follows. Through Noah, He preserved life. Through Jesus, He now restores it completely. Where the fallen angels once crossed from heaven to earth to corrupt, Christ crossed from heaven to earth to redeem. He faced temptation in the flesh and did not fall. The story of the sons of God and the Nephilim is a mirror for us today. It asks, what boundaries am I crossing? What desires pull me away from God's will? Like Noah, we're called to walk faithfully even when the world mocks obedience. When others build towers of pride, God honors those building arks of faith. If this lesson helped you see Genesis 6 in a new light, remember, every mystery in Scripture points back to God's plan to restore what was lost. Subscribe if you'd like to keep exploring the hidden depth of the Bible with me. We'll keep asking the hard questions and discovering how God's truth still speaks today.